against
Yes.
Myamon in Nilfgaard. He's a Nilfgaardian for this one.
We saw this exact same queue last time in the series where Myamon queued the same stuff against Trusky, who also went on blue coin first and also went with Alumni. Really good draws from Trusky in that game. While things weren't exactly ideal for Myamon, but what Myamon did was fight for round 1, potentially committing a little bit too much to win it. And yeah, Angolim onto the chapter in this specific matchup is very, very good too.
Danirai taking the Alumni going first. Obviously, that Crystal Skull can be a very nice option just to protect engines as an Alumni deck. Also, just engine decks, generally speaking, enjoy going first because they just get to develop, as opposed to control decks, which prefer to go second to remove cards. So you can certainly see why Danirai's decided this queue. He doesn't have access to Letitia. If I'm not mistaken, Cceely, when we saw this matchup earlier with Trusky in Danirai's place, his opening play was a Letitia into Crystal Skull, which obviously gave him a lot of carryover and points. We also saw the diplomacy in the last series with Myamon starting off with a Revenant. And I don't think the Mauler's going to be quite as impactful in this round as that Revenant was.
Honestly, maybe it will be because of the Blightmaker ping potentially hitting something if Danirai doesn't go ahead and now boosts this melee mage. But the Mauler has a little bit of damage reach. Potentially if this mage assassin ping would hit perfectly. So we'll see. It could be something for Myamon, but certainly not as good as the Revenant that we saw. That one pretty much won Myamon the round in the last game.
Yeah, we also saw Trusky have access to Vengeance in his opening hand in the last game, but didn't decide to use it. So maybe it's actually a good thing for Danirai he doesn't have that card, as it did maybe force a slightly premature pass from Danirai. His whole hand is reasonably playable. Of course, Chapter of Wizards is a card you would ideally play in round 2 to get that round 3 carryover with it. And also Shani is not going to be available straight away. The other thing to, of course, mention about Myamon's deck is his Angoulême. Angoulême is also fantastic against Northern Realms because you're just going to be hitting that Chapter of Wizards. Not only is that carryover, it's also going to be triggering your Assimilate twice because Rune Word is going to create a mage.
That's right. And Myamon is pretty happy with his hand. I think he has the Coup, he has the Artorias, and as we saw, the Informant come down. Those are all cards that can help Myamon create his own students for Alumni value potentially later. Being able to copy them from Danirai is very important in round 1, so that's something that Myamon probably wants to focus on. And Danirai here just really nicely playing around any control, any muzzles, things like that, buffing the Crystal Skull, also AAing one of these students.
Yeah, the students are ticking along slowly, but the Nilfgaardian students also worth keeping an eye on because Myamon is able to, of course, play Alumni and then use that for his own advantage. Danirai taking a different line to what we saw in the previous game with that pass on 7, allowing his students to continue to tick, but not wanting to play any further here.
They are taking, but at the same time, this allows Myamon to control the round, to bleed. Calvit is down. There's going to be a very good hand coming down from Myamon as well, which could allow him to quite efficiently bleed Danirai here if he so wants to. Of course, Danirai can set up more patience value potentially in round 2 as well. We'll see.
Patience 3 is all that's active on the students in the range row, but Shani is able to call that in straight away, and then you're going to tick that patience instantly. Istrid also a really nice card to find in this round 2, of course, being a consistency tool. Siege Masters both still in the deck, that's a really good point to make, as well as Vengeance and Royal Decree. So Danirai, of course, and he does have a Soul Eva. Istrid might have to save the day.
Yep, definitely have to hope for the Istrid here. We'll see how long that one will stick. I mean, there is a muzzle that Myamon has, right? Or did it come down in round 1?
I don't think we've seen it, no. It's in the deck there still, yeah.
Yeah, it's in the deck still, yeah. Still in the deck. That's right, there's a lot of 10 provision cards in the deck, so we haven't seen quite all of them. Angolim was the first one that jumped into hand there. But yeah, there is the Easter, just like Specimen mentioned, hoping to clean up these draws a little bit for the round 2 and setting up a little bit more patience value. This is Myamon's deck that we're looking at.
Ooh, cleans up the student with the double Blight Maker Mage Assassin, finding the right target. And the Istrid, as you mentioned, it is a muzzle target potentially. Danirai did have the option of clicking this with the Zeal and just drawing one card. But realistically, Myamon, even if he had access to this muzzle, there's better targets, right? There's things like Letitia. This Istrid doesn't look like that much of a threat. We actually know it's really going to be quite important for Danirai to try and find his Amphibious Assault. That Echo card you're really going to want to play in round 2 to get that Echo value from the card. As well as obviously finding his Rathard's Vengeance as well could be something that proves to be quite key, because Myamon's just got a very, very stacked hand here, and Danirai is going to want to be able to shuffle some of these bronze cards away. Also just finding the Siege Masters into his hand as well. Istrid really is trying to do an awful lot for Danirai here, and you can certainly see why it's found its way into these Patience decks. Now it's 6 provisions.
It does help a lot. And yeah, having a Siege Engine but no Siege Master is not ideal. As we said before, there's only 2 Siege Engines, being the Sage Tower and being Rathard's Vengeance. Danirai hasn't seen either. And it is very important in these alumni decks that you draw what you need and when you need it. The timing of things is also very important. So yes, this Istrid is very important. Myamon, on the other hand, is saying that, okay, Danirai isn't developing patience. There's a lot of tempo on the board. The row will get full at some point. Maybe it's time to pass and just play a very stacked round 3, while Danirai is going to clean up his draws here and see where that takes him.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a sticky one with no assault. I believe it's still in the deck, unless I'm missing something. I believe it is there. We don't actually have access to Observer Chat on these qualifier casts. The way it works is there is a basically the game's recorded, we're watching it, like that's why we can interact with you. There is still a delay. This happened 30 minutes ago, but we're watching it at the same time as you guys are, so we don't have access to like an observer. But 13 points needed. It's a big ask. Gerhardt is a point off unless you take a leader charge off the pact.
Yep.
Or click. Okay, that makes sense.
Or click. Yes, saving the chapter or around 3. But yes, Gerhardt is a pretty big commitment here for Danirai to go ahead and play. Not really ideal. You'd much rather take that gap with Amphibious Assault and play that. And here is Natal is a little bit late to the party, unfortunately, but he's finally here, and the Siege Master as well. So a little bit of thinning still going to be happening from Danirai's side.
It's better late than never, but this is the thing about Amphibious Assault. Amphibious Assault would have been enough, I do believe, to do the gap there, especially with John Natalis. 13 points that Gerhardt played for. I believe with John especially that there should be a 13-point assault. And that Echo card is then going to go back onto the top of your deck for round 3. So instead of using a Gerhardt, a gold, you basically just get a free gold card. So you would have a whole other Gerhardt in hand. So Danirai is going to be really sad that he didn't manage to get the Echo value on his Amphibious Assault. Letitia as well. I think she's not going to be staying on the side of Danirai for too much longer here.
Nope, Myamon does have an answer, and Danirai is well aware of it. To be fair, it's probably better that the Letitia gets muzzled than maybe something else later. So it's more of like, you have to deal with it, otherwise the Letitia can still get pretty good value. Potentially you can rest something from Shawnee, but there aren't students really in Danirai's hand anymore, so she would be buffing patience to whatever Shawnee pulls. So maybe Danirai is kind of happy if the muzzle ends up on Letitia.
Yeah, and this is an interesting just decision in the deck builder. A lot of people were cutting Letitia last season in favor for cards like Necromancy, which give you more value on students. But ultimately, Letitia is a card that you do just kind of have to answer. And interestingly enough, no muzzle coming through just yet, but instead a Vigo being the option here. A little bit surprising.
It's definitely a little bit surprising. And going for a 7-point Blight Maker here. Putting Mage on top. Maybe waiting to see if Danirai actually has the students. Giving this Letitia a little bit of time to cook, because here is the Shawnee. And this is kind of what the Letitia is looking for. And now we'll see what the muzzle target is going to be for patience. Now on the R2 as a student, Myamon has set up, I believe, a melee row student on his own side of the board.
Yeah, this Angoulême, I mentioned it earlier about how many times it's going to trigger Assimilate. It's actually 3 times. You're going to play your Angoulême, you're going to play Chapter of Wizards, which isn't in your starting deck, that's 1 trigger. You're going to play a Rune Word, which is a 2nd, and then you're going to play the Mage off Rune Word. That's a 3rd trigger. And potentially, of course, that the card you played, the final card, the Mage, could be something like an Alumni, which you've already managed to develop some value on. And then also you get to click the Chapter of Wizards as well for a 2nd. That click isn't going to trigger your Assimilate, but that's 3 Assimilate triggers and a whole bunch of points. So we saw Cams at Masters last year using Angoulême in all of his decks to target Northern Realms. It is a really, really good card against NR, as is Muzzle as well.
Okay, and then we see Myamon going ahead and just using the leader right away, not setting up that many patience engines, perhaps looking for an answer for this Letitia, forcing Danirai to click it or deal with this Selkirk with his own Selkirk. Also then delaying their farts, I guess. So it's an interesting pull definitely for Myamon, just instantly trying to find something here. And indeed, Danirai does have to answer this Selkirk. And the Letitia is still online. Is it about time that Myamon considers the muscle on this one?
So Bane's made a really interesting point in the chat that maybe Myamon is just happy to let this Letitia go because it's going to give big value to a student. And then if you muzzle the student's going to go onto your side of the board, therefore also giving your own alumni higher value, which is a really interesting point. Because of course, Myamon can play alumni off Brathens, off Terra Nova. We mentioned also the Chapter of Wizards could find one. And certainly you can almost definitely play an alumni off the Order of Chapter of Wizards. So lots going on here from Myamon. Really, really interesting. We've seen Myamon just make some really big brain decisions throughout the game. Already got 3 Assimilate cards down. Here comes Shani onto a student, which is going to increase that patience even further. I want to say patience 4 or 5. So close.
Yes, very, very close. That indeed is a good point about the Letitia. Now, is there a way for Danirai to kind of play around that muzzle then on the student? We'll have to see. Boosting that plays into Invo, of course. But here comes the rewards finally. And now the Siege Master, of course, pops onto the board to the left of the Siege engine you're playing. So really, really nice addition as well to this new patch, making it a little bit easier to crew things. And here is the melee row alumni coming on and deleting that student that just was summoned by Myamon. And Letitia still waiting, still ticking. Now she's being clicked. Is this a play? Is this where the muscle is going to come in then from Myamon?
Certainly looks like it. It's like Danirai can't click, of course, this Patience 9 student yet, because otherwise it's not going to get the Patience buff off Letitia. And now the muzzle is looking like a really nice option. It's only 8 points in terms of tempo, but it's denying that 9 points of... Oh, no. Myamon is not interested just yet in going for the muzzle either. He keeps us guessing, Cceely.
We're definitely...
The alumni just cleans it up,
there it is. The damage, right, yeah. What is this muscle waiting for? I'm very curious. There's not that many just full value targets then. Is it looking to steal an alumni so that Danirai can't use Practice Makes Perfect? Is it looking to get that Shawnee? It's definitely interesting. Wonder what the target will end up being.
There's also like a slight concern of board space for both players, really, because Danirai, he does click the chapter with the double Spellweaver. It's a combo that you do see quite often. These Practice Makes Perfects are going to be triggering them twice, which is quite scary because, of course, Practice Makes Perfect is a spell, then you're going to play a mage off of it. It's a lot of damage pings. And for Myamon, there's also like a slight board space issue for him with the fact that Angoulême is going to be putting 3 or 4 cards down on the board, really.
Yes, that is a lot of row space to consider indeed, so that's a very good point. And I like that he's keeping us on our toes. We really don't know what Myamon is planning here, but it is intense. This is a very intense game. There's a nice invo target there as well. The winch came down. The Shawnee still has cooldown. Yeah, Myamon really has to think about what the target will be. When will the Angelim come down as well? And the coup. There is still a coup that you could go for on Shawnee, for example. Would be a pretty big play still. And the Angelim is indeed coming down on the board, going for the Chapter of Wizards. Let's see. I remember that last time Myamon didn't quite get what he was hoping for. It's looking kind of similar this time around as well, but it is the ranged row student that is being picked. And look at all of those assimilate pings. So many triggers.
Angoulême is utterly insane against Northern Realms. Wow.
Yeah.
You can see...
This is why you want to run it.
Yeah,
Crazy.
and you can see why Cams at Masters last year had Angoulême in every one of his decks, I believe, when he was trying to hard target Northern Realms. Cams actually lost that very first game of the tournament, so his lineup's kind of forgotten about a little bit. But before the tournament, I thought it was the best lineup in the whole event, really. Angoulême just showing what a great card she is. Many people using her. Danirai does claw his way back in front, but has also played an extra card.
Has played an extra card, but these Spellweavers are going to be taken quite a bit. There's still Alumni left, and 2 practice makes perfect. So there's a couple of points to be had here for Danirai on these little Spellweavers going off. Myamon, on the other hand, has also have a lot of points. There's still the Joachims that we haven't seen. There's a coup.
Yeah, and there's so many Assimilate engines down on the board. We've got the Mage Torturer, the Vigo, the Brathans, the Terra Nova. There's also the Chapter of Wizards ready to be clicked, as well as the Aretusa student in the back row. For Danirai, there's a couple of Practice Makes Perfect, which can play for an incredible amount of points. However, I do believe there is a Banard student stuck in the deck, which means you're not just going to be able to use Practice Makes Perfect onto the Alumni and then recycle it guaranteed. There's quite a good chance, a 50% chance each time that you're going to be hitting the point, the 0 patience as it currently stands of the Banard student. Here comes the second Shani off coup. Not bad.
Not bad at all, but yeah, the row space is a little bit intimidating. Luckily for Myamon, the whole front row is basically safe, and the Joachim targets can definitely go on there. It just means that the muzzle target kind of has to come down soon, because you won't be having any row space for that. So maybe it is the Letitia at 6 there that will ultimately be muzzled anyway. We'll see about that. But first, we are looking at Danirai's Alumni, of course, coming down here. Like you said, 50%, but it worked out all right. And pulls the Alumni.
Yeah, wins the first coin flip on the Practice Makes Perfect. Many more points to hit the Alumni, of course, compared to that Banard student. Does also mean now that he can play this other Alumni from hand and then you PMP that as well. Meaning he's got another 50% chance to just get the Alumni, which is going to be significantly more points. Definitely a big deal that Danirai hits that, keeps it close. And I mean, if he hits both 50-50s, that's going to be really what he needs to win. Will it be enough? It remains to be seen, but he is still ahead by a decent amount. These Spellweavers are playing for a lot of points.
They indeed are, and that 9 patience little ranged row student that Danirai was able to sneak in there, was able to pull off the Letitia on as well. Those things are definitely playing for a lot of points here on all of these Alumni now coming down. So let's see if Danirai can also hit the second PMP, get it right, and get another Alumni. But a lot of boosts to be played. Myamon does have points. It's not over, and a lot will come down to what Danirai will also draw there. Will it be the Banard student? But here is the info.
I'm not going to lie, and Fiolin's also done it. Notice, this muzzle still seems to be in hand. Not quite sure that's optimal for Myamon, to be completely honest. There's many times we were expecting this muzzle to come through, and it's still in the hand of Myamon.
Exactly. And that Letitia really played for a lot of points on these Alumni now.
Yeah.
That Myamon could have instantly muzzled, so it was definitely very interesting choice to go for there.
We've seen Myamon with some very surprising lines that have caught us off guard and have proven to be just incredibly big brain. In this situation, though, it cannot be optimal, I don't believe, to still have muzzle in your hand at this point in the game, because there's so many engines for Danirai that are playing for so many points. The longer you wait with the muzzle, it's just going to be playing really is that you might even just end up muzzling the Letitia all this time later for 12 points. Here we go, though. The practice makes perfect. Very soon, we are going to see that 50-50 on this alumni in the back. Here comes the Joachim, just going to hold on to this muzzle for as long as possible, it seems.
Yep. Let's see what row it will be played on. Guess that it will be going... It could go either melee or ranged. If it goes ranged, you can hold on to this shielded student and get even more patience onto your ranged alumni if you're Myamon here, but goes ahead and indeed does use it. There is a little bit of damage on Danirai's side of the board, so the spell weavers could come in with a little bit of damage there, taking away that ranged row student. Who knows? We'll see.
Shani coming through again. There is a Zeal available as well for this Aretusa student, so you can cycle a couple of points. Self-damage. Huh?
To make space for the damage on the melee row.
Oh my lord, what a finish! Wins the other 50-50 Danirai.
Wow.
Creates the space in the crew pocket and also the position to play the alumni in the front row to damage. The Aretusa student and the Banard student can still be clicked. 12 points on the muzzle. Ooh. But there is still this Aretusa student which could maybe make it a little bit closer. Is it patience 8? Let's find out.
This is very, very intense.
Does this student have 8 patience? I'm going to throw it out there. It doesn't.
I don't think it does.
It came off Rune
What
Word.
was it? 6? It should have 6. Yeah. 6 patience is what I think.
How is muzzle still in Myamon's hand?
Oh, there it goes.
Oh, it's 4 patience. What a game.
It was 4.
And
Still.
Danirai won both of those coin flips on the PMP. There was 2 cards it could have hit. The alumni significantly more points.
So close.
Wow.
What a game. That was very intense.
Wow. Syndicate decks, which aren't necessarily the best decks. Not many other people are banning Syndicate.
No, that is true, but it still has proven to be quite good. We did see Syndicate from Danirai in the previous series against Magpie, and that Syndicate list seemed pretty nice off the book. So maybe it is a consideration that you want to be a little bit scared of that one. Flexible point slam, it's got a lot of things, so it makes sense to ban it. But yeah, here we go. How many times have we seen this kind of setup for a game, especially with Nilfgaard being on blue coin, Else being on red coin? Again, no feigned death though. There's an
era though this time, Cceely. So there is this time there is, and also look at this from Danirai. Never mind. I was gonna say the double waylay in hand, but never mind. He draws Vanadane on the last one, so I think the reason he mulligans a waylay is he's gonna be using his Anero for feign death, because that's the line that Trusky took. You would imagine, again, they prepped together and it worked for Trusky. So you'd imagine Danirai is going to slam it. This is the exact same opening we saw from Myamon as well, with the Emissary preventing the Commando. The reason he took this mulligan on the Waylay was that he wasn't likely to play Vanadane round 1 unless that next mulligan was either Vanadane or feign death. Now, the other thing that's really important to look out for, Cceely, in this game is, are we going to hear this bloody Vanadane voice line that I've been waiting for all day?
Maybe, we'll see, but at least it's in Danirai's hand. He will be playing it, will be setting it up. Definitely quite nice draws here from Danirai. Really, all the tools can push with the feign death. Last time, we did see Myamon fight the round a little bit. Instead of kind of giving in, Myamon answered with an Angolim. Does Myamon still think that that's the strategy, or will he settle for something a little bit more low tempo? But to be fair, this hand is looking very golden, quite committal as well from Myamon. There's not that much and not that far he can play without having to commit some of these important goals.
Yeah, there's a few key differences in the hands compared to the last time we saw this matchup with Trusky versus Myamon, because of course Trusky's deck is the same as Danirai's. We did see Myamon with that Angoulême in hand, able to use his own feign death, but we also saw Danirai with a heat wave. We saw Trusky rather with a heat wave in his hand, and what ended up happening was Myamon played the Angoulême instead of this torture he's just played. Danirai, I want to say maybe heat waved it, and then Myamon eventually passed on 7. to deny this feign
Yeah.
death going through. So a little bit of a different opening this time. Myamon, maybe he's just resigned to losing on even, and is going to save his golds.
It might look like that is the case. There is a lot that you can play still if you're Myamon. If you really want to contest this round, you can play down, but it is going to be costly. It's going to be expensive, and this joust does kind of indicate that that's what Myamon is preparing to do. And just like you said, especially Danirai this time around does get that waylay for the Lisa to put back into the deck later.
Is this it? Is it? I think this is the time, so we have to be quiet to see if we hear the voice line. I think this is the moment. Come on, fingers crossed. I want your praises in chat, guys. Will we hear the voice line? He's not saying the thing, man.
Never lucky.
He's not saying the thing.
I think Benedane's broken. It doesn't work right. We have to report this bug to CDPR. All right, and then there is the big Aileron as well. Quite the commitment, quite the point swing. And look at this. Myamon is still going. Still fighting for this round, not really ready yet to lose on even. Takes the Vanadane, does get spying on it. We did see Myamon do this thing previously as well, where he artotted into the Vanadane as well and played some synergies himself, which was quite nicely done. So that muzzle is tempting. It's also a big point swing for Myamon, and he does end up taking it.
Yeah, and this waylay played from hand from Danirai. One in the graveyard from the Feign Death, which was created not in the starting deck. There's now another one in the graveyard created by Vanadane. Those two waylays can be put back into the deck with Alyssa. That Simless then is going to be playing for the maximum amount of points. One waylay is on the bottom for Danirai. Oh no! We talked about Myamon not wanting to commit, and suddenly his Mage Assassins disappeared. Oh goodness me.
They are gone. That is not what Myamon was hoping for. But you can't really play Calbeat and get your Artot out in round one either. So if Myamon is intending to test the round, this is what he had to do. He had to risk it for the biscuit and say, no, I'm not pulling the Mage Assassin. Unlucky this time though. Didn't dodge it.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate for Myamon. You can certainly see why I went for it. And there we see the Archer as well, using its Ranger ability, dealing 1 damage to 2 cards. And with the Death Blow, you get a Elven Deadeye. This is a newly buffed card from the latest patch. You can also play this card in the front row if you're not aware, and deal 3 damage and spawn a Waylay as well. So a pretty flexible card that Danirai and Trusky are playing. I wouldn't be surprised.
Look.
Oh, the reverse!
So it was all set up. It was all set up for Myamon to be doing. I think he was really happy to see that card from Danirai come down, because that was like the perfect copy. And you have another one if you really want to. You could pull like Artorias into another Informant and go for that again and stay in this round and not give it up. But yes, committal indeed. But Myamon has the point to continue playing in this game. What a beautiful tempo play there with the little bronze archer. I'm so happy this card was reworked.
If you're a Scoia'tael player, don't play the Archer against Nilfgaard, because they can do it better than you. They play their Informant, they kill really the Informant, and they kill another one of your cards. It's just going to be better. So that's actually, I guess, a downside of including the Archer in your deck, because look at the value that Myamon is now getting from these cards. It's pretty incredible. And Shidmiri's pointed out that Invo is now available on Aileron for 10 points. And Invo is really bad in this matchup. There's not many other targets for it. Look at
Terubiel. That's a massive Terubiel. What a reworked. And also, yeah, perfectly set up. Of course, Myamon has to play those ranged. They are ranged locked. There's no way to play around that Terubiel either. And this run is so expensive for Myamon. He spends so much and he's still losing on even.
Will Myamon see the Shinmiri line of going for the Invo? Decides not to go for it just yet. Does find another one!
Melee this time.
Oh my goodness. The Archer is Nilfgaard's best friend. It is just proof that Nilfgaard does what you do better. It's ridiculous. There's a Waylay. So that's a big commitment, because that is carryover loss for Danirai. Every time we've seen this matchup so far, Elves have won on even. But Danirai is starting to look a little bit ropey because of all these Archers. Will Myamon see this Invo line? Of course, he could invo Joachim too as a carryover play. But invo onto Ailerin, 10 tempo, you're not going to get a better invo than that the whole game unless you're going to invo something, again, like a Joachim or Venosio.
The Joachim pool is a little bit risky with the invo as well because Danirai does have 2 cards in hand. He can still play into this round. So we'll see. What is Myamon going to do? Is it going to be the Calvite? Just finally calm down and set it up for round 2? Is it going to hold on to it, or is the Ailerin going to be invoed? That would be fantastic to see. He can still do it next turn if Danirai keeps on going. 2 huge plays left. Burno will definitely be a lot of points, a lot of dead eyes on the bro, and there it is. Seamless, something you want to save because of the way late setup, and the invo play is just not quite enough here.
Yeah, just one short on the invo onto the Ailerin, and it's going to be a big sigh of relief for Danirai, really, because this Simless is the key card. With all those waylays, Myamon could trade his leader for Simless, and then maybe invo the Venosio, for example, the Teruvio, or something that's going to play for a lot of points, the Joachim as a carryover play. And in fact, that is exactly what is going to happen. When you see that Venosio, you get probably a lot of information that this last card is going to be a big gold card. Predicting the Simless. The Mentor is pretty huge here. It's going to buff itself by all the cards on the row.
Yep, definitely not bad. Maybe Cat Witcher there, or just some poison.
Invo on the Verno as well.
Okay, yeah, there we go. I mean, to be fair, like, if Myamon doesn't do it here, he's committed a lot.
Yeah.
Committed a lot. So losing here now, giving into the Simless, at least trying to get it out in round 2 is what you have to do, because Danirai has set it up. It's all set up now, and it can happen. So Myamon has to give his all. Does have some power plays left. There is a coup. There is an Artaud that could now go into a Benedane, I suppose. If I don't know if there is any other target than that. So we'll see if the coup is actually going to happen this round. What does Myamon have left? The Angouleme we haven't seen, right? The Angouleme is actually huge.
Yeah. So there's a feigned death in the hand of Myamon. It is plus 3 points, but also Angouleme is going to switch off that commando for a turn, and then Verno can come through, switching it back on. The Terra Nova, you've got to imagine there's some sort of elf with spying here. For Danirai, he does have the Simless into a bunch of waylays, so that's an option. Has the Heat Wave as well, which, you know, you're not going to be doing much more with that Heat Wave at this point.
There it is. And Myamon can now decide, does he give it his all and hope to see enough from Danirai? Because that Simless is scary.
This Angouleme has traded up so many points on Heatwave. I talk about quite a lot in my stream about how Heatwave on Scenario, it's not actually that good. This Heatwave has so far traded down 7 points on the Feigned Death. On the Angouleme, right? That's an insane trade.
Alright. Here is the setup. Myamon has to squeeze out the Simless. Has to. There is no way this is going to be nice in round 3. Because that is going to be board wipe if it makes it there.
Can Danirai get ahead here?
Flexibility with the 3 leader charges that are unused. 9 points of leader power. Ethan Grim, of course, also swarming a little bit here with the Deadeye. Deadeye's finally. Chat is concerned about what Myamon has left in the deck, and
he's got waylays. Lots of waylays, but not for long. And there's the pass from Myamon.
Ooh, has 9 points.
We're in uncharted territory here. Seeing this go. Every time we've seen this matchup, Elves won on even. Myamon took the round, though, and as a result, he's bled out this Waylay combo. Look at all those points almost wasted here from Danirai. The Heat Wave trading down so many points to the Angouleme. Everything is just coming together very nicely indeed for Myamon. He mulliganed the coup, so he's going to be looking to draw that. The rest of his deck is in order from his Calvate.
Double Blightmaker left. It's still points, it definitely is still points. Now the fur card not looking like it's doing a whole heap. There's only one mage assassin, of course, because of the Joachim happening in round 1. But this fur card, I guess it works because there will be waylays actually from the Vanadane on the Artad.
Ah, that is big
So
brain.
That is big
wait,
brain from
you know what
Myamon.
else this means, Cceely? We could hear the
No.
voice line again. Oh my god, it's another opportunity.
We can hear it.
It's another
The last
opportunity.
chance, maybe.
My goodness.
We'll see. We'll see.
It's like the 5th time
All right.
lucky?
Yeah. Okay, also the fact that Danirai drew this melee locked elf is not great because look at that range throw elf. It's not really great, missing a point on it there. Of course, if you have to play it ranged, it will boost itself by the amount of elves you have on a row. So that's kind of what Danirai is going to try to set up the range throw, I believe,
Yeah.
for it. And yeah. Let's see then, Miyamon's. He does have points. He does have points left.
And you can see why Muzzle is such a popular card in these Nilfgaard decks. Like, there's many good options. There's Heatwave, there's Lydia, Bribery, Vigo. Lots of people are cutting these cards before cutting the Muzzle. And here, it denied the Vanadane points in round 1, and it also set up the Terra Nova for round 3.
Yep. Blightmaker coming down first just to make sure to thin, so there will be one waylay created from Vanadane. Artad into Vanadane, and then the fur cards can also play that special card.
Yeah, so Vanadane, I believe when it was first printed, Cceely, you had to transform 2 cards, but after like a month or 2, they changed that, so you can just collect this one turncoat, then confirm choice. There comes the Isengrim, buffing up these Deadeyes out of the range of waylays, which could be quite important. But this Purified card is just going to be 5 points, because Isengrim is also going to still gain points whenever an elf is played. I think it's time for the Scoia'tael the Woods Must Abandon.
Is it time? We'll see. We're on the edge of our seats. The time should be now. This is when the Artad should be coming down, right?
I think it's time. I still don't even know if it's the Scoia'tael the Woods Must Abandon or the Woods Must... I don't know. It's so confusing. I love it. It's just the best voice line in the game at the moment. Myamon's just making sure. Seeing if there's any other options he has.
I wonder if there is any other option, but it has to be the Artad, and there it goes. This is why the muzzle happened in round 1. Here is the Vanadane transforming this torturer to a waylay.
Yes!
Transforming both.
We got the voice line.
There we go.
Come on.
We got it. Good job. I think you jinxed it. You made it happen.
It was the praises in
Now
chat.
we have... It was. Good job, chat. You did it. You made it happen. And yeah, fantastic waylay value, of course, because this Vanadane is sticking. And on top of that, assimilate value onto this Artad.
When did Waylay become so good? It's unthinkable. 10 points per Waylay. What a close game as well.
This game was so crazy. This game was so crazy. I can't. Myamon really got those passes right. Like the pass in round 2. And getting that Simlas out. Whew.
Crown points are still nice.
There
for
are
coming as
ways
well.
of doing it.
Oh, it's
Indeed.
time.
All right, I think it is time. This is such a spicy list. I'm curious to see how Nilfgaard is going to do here, because we do know that Nilfgaard loves engine decks, loves playing them. Myamon this time around is bringing the list on red coin. Last time we did see it on blue. This was kind of what we had in mind for the list as well, that it's a bit of a red coin one with the slow tempo play. So we're going to see it from this coin. And Danirai, on the other hand, is going to try to win with Nilfgaard here. Yeah, some Blightmaker action. A lot of promises going on there, but Calbeat has made an appearance, so Danirai is sure to be drawing those sweet golds a little bit later into the game.
Yeah, we saw Myamon earlier play this Scoia'tael deck on the other coin when he was going first. But no surprise really to see that it is going to be a deck that he ideally would like to play going second with the carryover that All God gives you. It's not like a traditional Scoia'tael deck where you maybe have a Madoc and some bombs with lots of removal. It is more of an engine heavy version without the Saskia. Also, something really important to look at in this round one is where does the coup go from Danirai? Obviously, it's looking quite tempting on Dunker right now, but coup onto All God is also something that Danirai could use to his advantage.
Yeah, with these turncoats, being able to spy, put spying on the All God, for example, you can coup it, you can damage them. Definitely a lot of options for Danirai to use Myamon strategy to his own advantage. Just classic Nilfgaard things as usual. And this is where the All God seems to be coming down because Myamon is indeed deciding. We don't quite know where all we're being shown. Again, boosts on the Sentinels and Gesras this time around, buffing him up to 7. Quite difficult to remove. There is Invocation, so we'll see if Danirai holds on to that for the Gesras.
Yeah, we saw in the last game, the muzzle came through like turn 1 or so from Myamon's opponent, Trusky. So muzzle was no longer a threat on Gesras, so Myamon actually buffed the Geralt Quen instead to play around the Invo on Gesras. This time, however, using the All God to play around muzzle is quite genius, and you can certainly see the appeal of All God. It's not just a carryover play in terms of sheer points, but also just in making his Gesras more difficult to kill.
Right, and the spying has entered chat. It is on the All God, making that coup very, very tempting for Danirai to put some extra carryover on his own cards. Let's see. Is Myamon looking for kind of a play 3 cards and pass? I'm assuming that that might be the case here, rather than trying to fight the round. It might be a little bit difficult, though, trying to keep up with Nilfgaard, who can also copy your engine. So we do see Myamon continuing to play just for reach, playing out the engines, playing out the Cat Witcher, probably looking for the Sentinel as well. The Malena has a little bit of synergy there. But yeah, giving up the round is definitely, you could get bled really, really hard if you're Myamon.
Yeah, Myamon as well does have only a couple of these movement engines in hand, but also already has this Swordmaster down as well. So without a Saskia, it can be pretty difficult to develop this engine overload. So he's going to probably want to try and make use of it while he does have an engine already stuck on the board. So if he's to play another engine now, like a Sentry, that is 3 engines on the board. The All God here, off of coup. Of course, you can be buffing maybe Mage Assassin. I'll tell you what you're not going to want to buff, Cceely, and that's Joachim.
Joachim.
Or Emissary.
Or that one.
Anything else
Indeed.
is probably fine.
Yeah.
And of course,
nothing really to play around, just making sure that you put the buffs on cards that you will draw. And of course, you know what you will draw because of Calvite, so it's definitely easy for Danirai to make sure he has access to all of this carryover as well that's being set up right now.
Yeah, and he's also going to want to play around the Igni as well, so I'm not too surprised to see the Mage Assassin getting a buff. Maybe a little bit surprised, though, to see Furcot not catching one of those, because it's not a card that's going to go particularly tall. Deciding instead to buff his Brathens and Terra Nova, that could be as a way of trying to play around the Death Blow. We saw that as a line Trusky took in round 3 of the reverse of this series, right? In the previous series. Like being able to deny Death Blow was pretty significant.
Absolutely. Now Myamon does have to make sure that he's counting this right. Does he have reach if he keeps on playing? The Sentinel does come online, potentially looking to set up this 6-point Calvite for a muzzle target once the cooldown goes down on the Elven Swordmaster. Danirai, on the other hand, keeps playing kind of non-committally, giving Myamon a little bit of time to set up his own stuff, so giving him a little bit of time to set up the engines. But Danirai is very comfortable, I think, where he is right now. Squirrel coming down. Ooh.
Squirrel's really been doing a lot in this. We saw this the last time as well. Squirrel onto that coup. The coup is such a tempting option for Danirai in round 1, and maybe that's exactly why Myamon has put the Squirrel in his deck. He knows that his Nilfgaard opponents are not going to be able to resist the temptation of cooing an All God. And yeah, being able to just get rid of that coup is really nice for 4 provisions.
The muzzle play has opened its doors to Myamon. There could be a damage from the Swordmaster and then a muzzle that is doable. There is still an engine ticking now from Danirai, which is nice. And also not really having to commit anything. Danirai's hand's not that amazing. It is pretty good for playing deep. in round 1 though, and that's exactly what he's doing.
Yes, also the Cat Witcher flip-flopping between the rows is sort of disrupting the Igni a little bit. Malena can actually line up an Igni of her own. Look at this play from the Malena. The Malena putting a bunch of 4s in the back row. The Cat Witcher's going to move into this back row, setting up the Igni of Dreams. Oh my goodness.
And this is where Danirai has to see the line, has to see the Malena think, okay, why was it moved? All right, there's an Igni. I have to get out of here. Nothing that Danirai can do here. Can't disalign this. And Myamon is able to go ahead and play out this Igni.
Now, this Igni looks great, but he doesn't have to take it. He could also do the points with something like Muzzle. But come on, he does it! Oh,
you all wanted to see that. You know it, chat. You love to see that. When have we seen an Igni in an open decklist situation? But Myamon is playing so deep in these rounds that he is kind of guaranteed to get that Igni value. You can either just pass after 3 cards, you're getting bled by your opponent, where you're very likely to get an Igni, or you get the long round, where you're very likely to get an Igni. So Myamon doesn't care about the open deck listing at all, and it seems to work out. Really impressive. Did not expect that though.
Myamon takes the round control. He also had that All God carryover. Sentinels in the deck. Finds the Quen. Does he mulligan Gezras? He does.
Yeah. You don't really want your opponent. Danirai has the leader. Double cross. That is something that Myamon has to be mindful of. Double cross is great. Potentially into Muzzle. Great into Oak. Especially. But yeah, now Myamon knows that if he were to bleed, it's likely to be a pretty good value bleed because of Danirai's hand state. A lot of golds there, Calvi did come down, and a lot of bronzes that were played in round 1 as well. So maybe Myamon wants to trade a little bit here, see how it goes.
Muzzle might be something Danirai's feeling like, oh, I can just muzzle this Gezras, but of course with the All God, he probably is very well aware that Gezras is likely to be buffed. Decides to muzzle the Sentry. This is also important because it puts points on his side of the board. Oh, look at that. What do you know? I'll take that back, mate, if you don't mind.
If you don't mind. And there we go. Of course, Invocation can still deal with the Gezras. Maybe that's something Myamon's hoping to squeeze out. We'll see. Could just play a bronze here and trade another gold. There is the Truffle, on the other hand, that Danirai can set up, and Myamon should be aware of that.
Yeah, and this Invo, of course, can answer the Gezras, but it is going to trade down to Gezras somewhat significantly because of the Quen. Of course, Myamon, in an ideal situation, will also thin those Sentinels, though, before he does play the Gezras.
That is if Danirai does give Myamon that target. With all of these buffed cards, it's definitely not going to be too easy to get the death blow again. We did see Myamon having to go for kind of an early Oak to set up that death blow last time. And especially now that Danirai does get to play out this Truffle, does play that kind of low power unit, that the death blow in round 3 could be a little bit difficult for Myamon to enable. We'll see. Or, see, here's the death blow. I'll just take it now. Thank you very much. Play out the Gezras for quite a lot of points here, potentially.
Yeah, here it comes. Quen, of course, going to be shielding this Gezras up. Invo, not really too bothered about a shield, but that is trading up a lot of points. Now, there's also the argument that Myamon could try and play around the leader by giving, by playing the Oak first, right? Because the leader onto Oak is going to play for a decent... I mean, it's only a 9-point card right now. I suppose it's going to trigger Assimilate. You could play something else first, but... Yeah, I mean, you want to kind of take the Invo, and then the leader's looking really dodgy, and you're not going to trigger Assimilate. Maybe you can just leave the Invo for a turn, because Malena's already been played. It could be correct for Danirai to do something like play a Brathens, and then leader for that Assimilate value, something like that.
Yeah, definitely doesn't seem like a bad call, because like you said, if Danirai were to take the Invo here, he does have a turn if he just avoids playing into melee row. Doesn't give the Gezras any points yet. But it would be a little bit dodgy indeed if he went for a 9-point Oak and an Invocation. So yeah, we'll see. Danirai just has to choose now. Is he going to go for the Joachim? He can hold on to it because of course the Invo card will end up there. But yes, indeed does take the Invo. The leader though is getting worse and worse if you're not taking it here.
Yeah, Myamon, his Oak is not going to be doing very much in round 3. So you'd be surprised if he doesn't just play it here. And then you could decide to play the Matron as a 5-point card or just not play it and then try and have some stuff for round 3. You're also going to make your opponent's leader significantly worse. I would have liked to have seen, I think, Danirai just playing one of his other cards and then taking that leader for value. But of course, we have the big advantage of knowing exactly what the leader's going to hit. Danirai doesn't, right? Like, so, you know, it's very important to remember that. And here comes Oak. Nice 14-point play. 35 to the good. Truffle on the board. Leader's not playing for many points.
Not many points. Definitely Danirai getting 5-point Matron there. Assimilate pings a little bit as well. I'm gonna have to take it at this turn unless Myamon just plays it next turn. So you kind of have to leader here. And so we're assuming we're gonna see a Assimilate engine potentially coming down here. There's the Artaud, indeed. What is it going to go for? Another All God. It could have gone for a Cat Witcher. That also could hit some shields when it starts to move around. So this All God does make a little bit of sense. You can buff the Gesras that you're going to get from Joachim as well.
It's all really about surviving here for Danirai. Yeah. Lightmaker is at 6 points. Mage Assassin still chilling in at 4. Of course, Truffle available, which is going to trigger Assimilate as well. And Danirai knows that the card for Myamon is not exactly an ideal one.
Myamon really has played all of his juice. There is not much left here. There is not much to squeeze out. And so round 3, if you do end up playing this Matron and you end up going for a 3-card round, you have Danirai with all of this carryover from the All Gods. It's looking a bit sketchy if Danirai indeed does survive here. I wonder what Myamon is going to do. It is a pass to hope potentially that Danirai has to spend whatever is left. But yeah, Myamon does not have a lot of left after this round.
The Truffle click is going to get him there though, and there's so much carryover for Danirai that all the All God carryover from Myamon is gone. We've seen the Gesras, we've seen the Sentinels, but for Danirai, he's got a Gesras on top of his deck, which is probably at 7 points, I would imagine. He's got a Blightmaker at 6, a Mage Assassin at 4, but there is an Angoulême. That is something.
Oh, it is something indeed. An Angoulême into a Truffle can still do a couple of things. Other than that, I believe all of the gold cards have been played by Myamon. The Ignis, the Quentins, the Milenas. Yeah, the high end is gone. So let's see if this Truffle is going to be enough, but a lot of buffs here, and of course the Joachim is going to pull out, I believe, a really chunky Blightmaker with some buffs on it.
Yeah, it looks like Danirai is going to be taking this one by a fairly significant margin in the end. This round 2 maybe could have just gone a little bit better for Myamon if he had this Angoulême instead of that Matron, because of course the leader on Angoulême is not going to play for any points either. It's going to in fact play for less points than it would have on the Matron, for example. Lots of bodies available for this Gesras as well. What a really, really interesting game. And you've got to commend Myamon yet again for his deck building. Just very unique, very risky. But Danirai, the power of Nilfgaard coming through here.
Yes, Danirai really effectively being able to defend the bleed and play really deep in round 1 as well. Playing a lot of non-committal bronzes, saving some of that power for round 3, which is now paying off. And double All God, that is definitely fantastic for Danirai, and it's really cool that he went ahead and set those up, and now he's enjoying all the payoff of doing that.
Yeah, of course, Myamon's going to be very well aware that the Gesras is in hand because he's going to see the Squirtle card back in Danirai's hand. So he's going to know it's all but over. But he might continue to play on anyway, just in case. Maybe he just wants to play it out. Maybe psychologically he doesn't want to forfeit, you know?
Yeah. Just in case, you gotta play it out. It is looking rough. Not ideal playing this Dryad Matron here. Danirai, of course, setting up the Gastros to hit the melee row first, to then be able to maximize the boost it will get on the range row once it moves there. After the last card will be online. 5-point Dryad Matron, not exactly ideal. Cat Witcher is still playing for a couple of points. Definitely not bad, and a little bit of travel value on top of that. But look at these points from Danirai.
Yeah, Nilfgaard, yet again, just proving if you do something, I can do it better. And Myamon's gonna have to try again with this precision strike deck. Danirai just one deck left to go.
Yeah, that is right.
2-1 to
Very
Danirai.
tense series, very intense games. 2-1 for Danirai. That on blue coin, I think, against elves. But
I returned just in time.
just currently time. I just said that Myamon is going to struggle potentially here with having this list on blue coin against elves. And I also said that I'm hoping that we get to see this list again because it's so interesting. So that's exactly what Myamon does. We are queuing now the engine deck on blue coin, while Danirai is going for elves on red. Of course, he wanted kind of this game as well to be on red coin. Feign Death has been found. Can decide to go for a bit of a some work. Shouldn't be that hard to push Myamon here because of the nature of Myamon's deck. But maybe Myamon is happy again, just losing on even. He could still have points later on.
Will he decide to TA the Dunker this time? We saw him, the last time we saw him play this on blue, he didn't. And he tried to get rid of the muzzle. There is no muzzle, though, for Danirai in this one. He's just playing Heatwave. There's an option in this Squirtail deck to maybe cut to Ruvial for the muzzle, for example. That's one like setup you could go for. No muzzle in this one, though. And no surprise, really, to see the Feign Death just coming down straight away from Squirtail. This is what it does so well, Cceely, on that red coin.
Yes, it is definitely beautiful. And Myamon is going to have to decide now. Is he going to play low tempo, say, okay, you commit your Feign Death, you play your stuff. Of course, we don't see Vanadade other than from Necromancy potentially in the deck. Or is Myamon going to contest the round, set up some engines perhaps? There is a couple of movement engines indeed in Myamon's hand right now that could definitely have quite a bit of reach. And it seems like Myamon is testing the waters a little bit here before going ahead and playing something like All God, which would be really, really slow on blue coin.
Yeah, we saw Myamon previously on this coin pretty much accept his fate. Just say, I'm going to lose the round, and I'm just going to play as non-committally as possible. I'm going to get my All-God carryover. I'm not going to get any leader charges. However, this Malena play is certainly a little bit more committal than the Dragoon. The Dragoon was a real option here. I suppose the other thing they're both elves as well, so they both trigger the Feign Death. So maybe this Malena play over the Dragoon, could suggest a little bit of commitment coming from Myamon here.
It also means that Danirai has to consider the Igni. We see a Quen in Myamon's hand that can tutor Igni. So with this Malena online, there could be potentially a really good Igni to even set up. Maybe not. But Malena can help organize, for example, a whole row of Deadeyes for an Igni to take care of later. But here is the Vanadane.
With the voice line again. Oh my goodness, this is great. And this is the best time to use Vanadane, when you're completing the final chapter of the Feign Death, because you're going to just be playing a Waylay straight away. And that's, of course, going to mean that he's also going to trigger his passive ability when he's on the board. He's also going to spawn a Deadeye whenever you play a Waylay. That's why 2 Deadeyes were spawned there. And again, looking back at Myamon's decision to play the Malena over the Dragoon, I mean, looks like he's maybe, again, as you mentioned, the Igni setup is his dream here.
It's an Igni time. No, not quite yet. Not quite yet. But maybe going for a row full of 3s.
Yeah,
We'll
so
see.
with the initiative on Igni, you can Quen into it, but as soon as this order's clicked, right, that would disrupt the initiative on it. You would need 35. So the initiative changed quite recently, so you can now Quen into it without spoiling initiative. But chat, as soon as you click anything on the board, a leader charge as well, that is gonna ruin your initiative. But Myamon, look, he is not giving up. Here is his own Feign Death. He has a couple of elves in hand as well.
Yeah, the Dragoon being able to move something still. Danirai, on the other hand, does play a Waylay from hand, but this also does enable the Elisa to then put back the copies of the Waylays that have been played. And we do see Elisa there in Danirai's hand, so that's something that Danirai is looking to set up. But yeah, just big value here on this, the movement package. Cat Witcher as well is at its adrenaline very soon. So there's still points for Myamon. He can still fight for this round.
I love this decision from Danirai not to Heatwave Feign Death. I've talked about it a few times already this cast, like Heatwaving scenarios, maybe it's not so good. This is a kind of prime example of that. Heatwave on Feign Death is going to play for some points. It's going to deny a Waylay plus 2 Deadeyes. But ultimately, you can Heatwave like the Gezras later on, for example, is going to be a more important thing to be removing. It's often not always that good to Heatwave scenarios.
Yeah, and here is the tool reveal taking care of that Malena. So Malena cannot really be used to set up the Igni again, and the point gap is quite big to reveal. Recently got reworked, and now she uses both of the row abilities if you control an Elven Deadeye, which is fantastic here. Definitely. Oh, Waylay spawning the random Deadeye on the wrong row. Myamon just moved the Matron to range throw, and then on the melee row went the Deadeye, not getting a point from that Matron, unfortunately.
I really do love the way that Myamon's played this round. He's now offering Danirai the pass as well. If Danirai is to pass here, he will have card advantage moving forwards, because Myamon is going to need to play another card, and he's past that 5 card mark where you see often people, if they're losing on even on blue coin, they'll pass on 5 and then they try and defend the bleed round 2 to keep their card advantage. But he is now past that mark, and I believe now there's no pass being offered because the engines will tick. But Danirai didn't take that pass. He feels confident he can win this round.
Yep, Danirai is still going for it. Elisa still to be set up, and Isengrim is a big card for all this Elf Swarm payoff in round 1. Sure, it's a big one, but then again, Danirai has a couple of big plays left, and with the Simlas, with the Verno, so if Danirai can win on even, maybe the Isengrim will be worth it for him. Yep, there he goes.
There comes the Isengrim, a big commitment. Myamon does have 3 of his movement engines down on the board, and also there's an All God in hand. You would be very surprised if he was to pass before playing the All God, but there could also be an issue where if he plays the All God, then he's going to be forced to play another one of his cards. However, I do believe there's another Cat Witcher in the deck, so Quen into Cat Witcher would probably be enough, and you wouldn't necessarily actually have to play the Gezras. There's also an Igni, so there's a couple of options there of Quen.
Igni. This could be either All God or Quen, technically, I guess, where we would see this deciding. But it is indeed All God, just like Spessy said there. Gets that carryover in round 1. Still has engines ticking. Can play a bit of a big play still from that Quen. Get a couple of points, while Danirai has the option to Heatwave, potentially the Cat Witcher, or Elisa, just to kind of see what's up and maybe get something from Myamon, or pass, or say, you know what, I'm fine with this now, because you have to go down a card, and Myamon indeed does have to play something quite big, and it is Oak that we're going to be seeing here.
Ooh.
That is big.
I was wondering if Cat Witcher was going to be enough of Quen there. I guess Oak was a lot of points. Cat Witcher was, of course, going to be 2.2 damage per turn. Also, the Sentry was going to be buffing it, so it's like 3 points per turn. It was a 10-point card. Plus the Quen, it's like 12 points. So I think that was an option. Decided not to go for it, though.
Yeah.
I also just want to point out as well, the Commander in that last round, Cceely, from Danirai, played for like 12, 13 points.
It got huge.
Whereas the one on the Angoulême side of the board was like 3 points, right?
Yeah.
And that's because...
exactly.
That's because the Angoulême is just... And the Dryads and all those sorts of things just switching off, where these Elf decks just tend to only play Elves. Although the Alyssa is a human that can disrupt that. That's usually not in the same round as your Feign Death. Myamon winning round 1, decides he wants to continue on, and we've seen him try and really apply a lot of pressure in these shorter rounds with his Gezras and full leader.
Risk there, of course, is that you don't have much left if you go in and spend your whole leader, things like that. And of course, we do see the Simlas. What Myamon is hoping is saving the leader, potentially saving a little bit of juice, but also pushing out something important. We'll see. Danirai again has 3 leader charges at his disposal. That is quite a bit. So definitely doesn't have to worry just yet.
This is quite the dangerous bleed from Myamon, being down so many cards. But with a card like Gezra's and Adrenaline, we see it quite often with Colgrim. Being a card deficit with Adrenaline cards can be to your advantage because you might just get those cards to tick for a few more turns than you otherwise would. However, there is a problem. And that's a 4-point elf.
Yep.
It's not many
4-point
points.
elf that could be playing for a lot more once those Deadeyes come down. But Danirai is really greeting his points, saying that, okay, Myamon, play your leader then. I have power because Danirai potentially has power and he has power left to save for round 3. If Myamon would decide to kind of go all in now, there's still stuff left for Danirai to play. Maybe he's even tempting Myamon to kind of go for it. Either you save all of your power for later and Myamon has gone down a card, or you get it out and also stay in the round, which is Myamon is going to go all in, going for the Gwent into the Gezras as well.
Now, did the Gezras get buffed by the All God? That's
Looks
another
like
big
it
question.
Did. It looks like it did. Going for Cat Witcher.
I really like this play.
Yeah.
He knows
There's a
he's going to
Heatwave.
play the Quen. He knows a Neuromancy is in the hand of Danirai, which means Heatwave is guaranteed. So he just gets to play this Cat Witcher a turn sooner, which gives him an extra point on the Sentry and potentially an extra 2 points of damage as well.
So here comes the big waylay play. But what is Myamon gonna do in round 3? With a Gezras and a Quen in such a short round.
This doesn't look too good for Myamon. I'm going to throw it out there. I think Danarai's played this very, very well indeed.
Yeah.
He showed the power of the Elves deck on the red coin. But Myamon, he's not giving up. Here comes the Gezras.
The Gezras is still going, hasn't seen an Aeromancy, so Myamon kind of knows that the Heatwave exists.
Yeah.
And full leader charge and 2 cards left from Danirai. That is certainly a big one, and Myamon is not happy about it.
Okay,
But
so
he tried. He tried.
how can Myamon still win this game? Right, here's what happens, okay? He draws the Igni. In fact, he's got a Nera. He can Nera into Igni. And for some reason, Danirai plays into the Igni, like, very, very heavily. I'm trying to keep the
Connor has double
suspense.
last say.
Trying to keep the suspense going here, Cceely. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it.
You did a great job, though. Yeah, that squirrel is not going to do it. That muzzle, unfortunately, is not going to do it either.
Oh, the muzzle value.
Yeah, I mean-
Maybe he can pull this off. No? Okay.
We'll try. I mean, Myamon, I gotta give it to Myamon. Myamon is playing out all of his cards, seeing what happens. And if there's one lesson that you need to learn in Gwent, is that never give up. We've seen crazy situations in tournaments where people win cards down. That's probably not gonna happen here, but it can happen. Never give up. And Myamon is certainly not doing that. So I think that is very, very good.
Myamon is also denying some of the points from the Bowman here. Oh my goodness. The Anira man. I didn't take the Pella.
It is a Pyrotech that can still do a little bit of damage. Of course.
The Archer cleans up.
There you go, Deathblow.
Oh.
And a squirrel finisher. Good Pyrotech value though.
And with that, Cceely, Danirai has won the series 3-1, taking down Myamon. And Danirai has booked his place at Gwent Open #1 later on this season with his friend Trusky. They built the same lineup.
Yes.
And they both
Yes, it paid
won.
off.
That is impressive stuff.
That
Winning.
is really impressive.
Obviously, they played fantastic
good
Gwent
decks.
this weekend, but the prep they put in clearly working very, very well indeed from the two men from Poland.